It's a strange thing how quiet strength often appears invisible to the untrained eye. Because while the world chases noise, the intelligent woman learns to listen to silence. She knows that wisdom doesn't scream for attention. It waits, it watches, and it moves when the time is right. There is a rare kind of intelligence that doesn't announce itself with words, achievements, or intellect. It's not something you can see on paper or prove through argument. It's quieter than that. It's the kind of wisdom that moves beneath the surface, like a river flowing through rock, patient, purposeful, and unseen. And if you ever observe a truly intelligent woman, you'll notice that her greatest power isn't found in what she does loudly, but in what she withholds silently. She has learned the art of still observation, a way of seeing that doesn't rush to judge, doesn't cling to the comfort of certainty. She watches the world not to control it, but to understand it. While others are busy reacting, proving, or defending, she's simply only witnessing. Her gaze is soft, yet discerning. It's a presence. You see, she once believed that understanding others required explaining herself endlessly. But as she grew, she realized that true understanding doesn't come from convincing. It comes from perceiving. When you can stand in silence long enough, truth reveals itself without a word. That's the beauty of still observation. It teaches you that seeing clearly is often more powerful than speaking quickly, yet her stillness does not mean she is emotionless. Quite the opposite. She feels everything deeply, but she has learned to hold her emotions gently. Like precious stones, she studies them, turns them in her palm, and asks what they came to teach her. Anger, sorrow, fear, none of these frighten her anymore. They are visitors, not permanent residents. Emotional discipline for her isn't about denying what she feels, it's about mastering the way she channels it. There was a time when her emotions would take the wheel, steering her life through storms of reaction. But she discovered something profound. Feelings are messages, not commands. When silence felt like emptiness, but now she knows that silence is fullness, an ocean of thought and feeling that the busy world never hears. In solitude, she can hear her inner voice clearly, without the echoes of other people's opinions. That voice, once faint and uncertain, now speaks with gentle authority. You are enough, you are becoming, you are whole. She has learned that solitude isn't about being alone, it's about being aligned. Because when you know yourself deeply, you no longer feel lonely in your own company. The intelligent woman uses solitude not as escape, but as return. She retreats to reflect, not to hide. And when she emerges, she carries a calmness that cannot be faked, a light that cannot be dimmed. It is in solitude that she redefines her strength, not as resistance, but as rest. She learns that she doesn't always have to fight to prove her worth. Sometimes, the most powerful act is to be still, to let the world spin, while she remains anchored within herself. In that quiet, she rediscovers her direction. She remembers that her worth was never in the eyes of others. It was always in her own awareness. And so, she moves differently now. She walks through life not as someone chasing validation, but as someone radiating peace. When people ask her how she maintains her composure, she smiles softly. Because they do not know the hours she has spent in solitude, the tears she has turned into lessons, the silence she has molded into strength. She has learned that intelligence is not measured by how much you know, but by how deeply you understand yourself. To observe without judgment, to feel without losing control, to be alone without feeling lost. These are the marks of a woman who has met herself in her fullness. She no longer fears stillness. She no longer runs from emotion. She no longer dreads being alone. For she has discovered that the quietest moments often reveal the loudest truths. The moments where nothing is happening on the outside, yet everything is transforming on the inside. And maybe that's what true intelligence really is. Not the ability to outthink others, but the courage to understand yourself, to see, to feel, to be still, to stand in your own silence and not shrink from it. Because There comes a time in every woman's journey when she realizes that her greatest power was never in being more, it was in being aware. And in that awareness, she becomes untouchable. Not because she's hardened, but because she's healed. Not because she's distant, but because she's deeply present. So she continues to walk with grace, seeing more, reacting less, and cherishing the space within herself where peace quietly lives. And if you ever meet her, you'll notice something extraordinary. Her calm is contagious, her silence commanding, her solitude luminous, because she has learned that true intelligence doesn't need to shine. It simply glows. There comes a time in a woman's journey when she begins to understand that not every presence in her life deserves access to her spirit, that her energy, her time, her peace, these are sacred currencies, not to be spent on what drains her. It takes a while to realize this truth, often after years of giving too freely, after too many moments spent trying to heal people who had no intention of meeting her halfway. She has learned that peace comes not from control, but from truth, and that the most intelligent way to live is to remain anchored in that truth, no matter how the tides change. Her life now is not about becoming someone new, it's about remembering who she's always been, beneath the noise, beneath the roles, beneath the masks. The woman who doesn't need to react to be powerful, the woman who doesn't need to escape the moment to feel alive, the woman who doesn't need to pretend to be loved. She is no longer a collection of reactions or expectations. She is presence embodied, she is truth revealed, she is the quiet strength that grows when a woman chooses herself, not out of selfishness, but out of sacred self-awareness. And perhaps that is the essence of her wisdom, knowing that life is not asking her to be perfect, only and present, want to be fearless, only honest, not to be loud, only awake, because in her stillness, she has discovered that the most intelligent woman is not the one who knows everything. She's the one who knows herself. There comes a moment in every intelligent woman's journey when she realizes that her strength doesn't come from how much she can carry, but from how deeply she can let go. Letting go of what no longer fits, what no longer nourishes, what no longer aligns with the rhythm of her becoming. The world often teaches that power means holding tightly to people, to plans, to control. But true mastery begins when she dares to loosen her grip, when she chooses stillness over struggle and faith over fear. For she knows that the river cannot flow if she keeps trying to hold the water. The art of release becomes the sacred act that keeps her spirit free. The quiet revolution that no one sees, yet everyone feels. Letting go is not about indifference. It's about trust. Trust that life has a rhythm wiser than her impatience, a timing far more perfect than her planning. So she begins to observe what falls away, not as loss, but as clearing. Every ending becomes an invisible preparation for a beginning she cannot yet see. She stops chasing what isn't meant for her and starts nurturing what remains. For a truly intelligent woman knows that peace and power are not opposites. They are partners. Power without peace is chaos, and peace without power is complacency. When the two merge, something luminous happens. She becomes magnetic, not because she demands attention, but because her energy commands respect. People feel it when she walks into a room. That calm authority that comes from someone who no longer needs to prove her worth. Her presence says, I know who I am. I know what I carry. I know what I release. Yet this peace she's found is not fragile. It's not a surface stillness, easily disturbed by the noise of others. It's a peace rooted deep in understanding. She has faced her shadows and made peace with her imperfections. She has stopped trying to edit herself to fit the comfort of others. She has realized that peace isn't found in avoiding conflict, but in no longer letting conflict define her. She no longer reacts, she responds. She no longer fights to be right. She seeks to be real. And there is something profoundly magnetic about a woman who is real. Not polished, not perfect, but deeply, unapologetically real. She no longer hides behind masks of performance or pretends to have it all figured out. Her confidence isn't loud, it's grounded. Her laughter carries depth, her silence carries truth. She can walk away from the noise of comparison and return to the sound of her own breath. That's what authenticity feels like. The courage to be fully seen, even in her vulnerability. There was a time she believed she needed to appear flawless to be respected. But now she understands. People don't connect with perfection, they connect with presence. The kind of presence that says, I've been through storms and I'm still standing. She carries her scars not as shame, but as proof of transformation. They remind her that strength isn't about never falling. It's about how she rose again and again, softer but stronger, quieter but wiser. And this authenticity doesn't just change her, it changes everything around her. The moment she becomes real, her relationships shift. She no longer attracts what feeds her insecurities. She draws in what nourishes her growth. She no longer tolerates half-heartedness or one-sided love. Her heart becomes selective, not out of arrogance, but out of understanding that her energy is sacred. She knows that giving everything to those who take without giving back is a silent form of self-betrayal. So she learns to love differently, not out of need, but out of overflow. Her authenticity allows her to be both kind and firm, both gentle and clear. She speaks truth, even when her voice shakes. She sets boundaries without guilt, because she understands that saying no to chaos is saying yes to peace. And in doing so, she becomes a mirror, showing others that they too can live from a place of integrity and wholeness. But perhaps the most beautiful transformation happens quietly, when she realizes that authenticity is not an end goal, but a lifelong unfolding. Every season peels back another layer of her truth. Every heartbreak, every victory, every pause teaches her a little more about who she is and who she's becoming. She is no longer in a race to arrive. She is in rhythm with her own becoming. And so, peace deepens, authenticity strengthens, power humbles. She moves through life differently now, with eyes that see beyond appearances, with a heart that no longer clings, with a mind that no longer overthinks every step. Her presence becomes a kind of medicine, for herself, for others, for the world that has forgotten how to slow down and simply be. There's something almost sacred about watching a woman come home to herself. You can see it in her stillness, in her smile, in the quiet confidence with which she moves. She doesn't need to announce her transformation. It's felt. She doesn't need to prove her intelligence. It's seen in her calm, and she doesn't need to force her place in the world. The world adjusts to her presence. For the woman who has learned to let go, who has discovered peace within, who has embraced the beauty of authenticity, she is no longer waiting for life to begin. She is living it fully, consciously, gratefully, and in that state she becomes both student and teacher of life, learning, unlearning, and inspiring others to do the same. Because intelligence in its highest form is not about how much you know. It's about how deeply you understand, how gently you love, how gracefully you walk through change. It's the wisdom of knowing when to hold on and when to release, when to speak and when to stay silent, when to act and when to simply trust the unfolding. And perhaps that is the true beauty of an intelligent woman, her ability to live in harmony with both her strength and her softness. She is the calm within the storm, the clarity within the noise, the light that does not compete but simply shines. Not because she has conquered the world, but because she has made peace with her own. There comes a time in a woman's evolution when she begins to understand the quiet power of discernment, the art of not giving every part of herself to everyone who demands it. You see, intelligence is not only about knowing what to say or what to do, it's also about knowing when to withdraw your energy, when to stay silent, and when to walk away without announcing your departure. A wise woman learns that not every invitation is meant to be accepted, not every argument deserves an answer, and not every connection requires continuation. She learns to listen to the subtle signals within her, the tightening of the chest, the quiet fatigue in the soul, the way her body whispers in, "This is not for you." When discernment, then, becomes her unseen armor, it's not built on walls of fear, but on boundaries of wisdom, because she understands that the more she grows, the more the world will test her alignment. Opportunities will come dressed as distractions. People will appear with charm but carry chaos. And so, she no longer measures a person by what they say, but by how she feels in their presence. If her peace begins to tremble, if her light starts to dim, she knows it's time to step back. This discernment is not rooted in judgment, it is born of awareness. Awareness that her time is precious, her energy sacred, and her peace too valuable to be spent on things that do not contribute to her growth. When she says no now, it is not from bitterness, it is from clarity. When she walks away, it is not rejection, it is redirection. She has learned that distance can be a form of love. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for yourself and others is to let go with grace. The woman who walks in discernment no longer seeks to prove her worth by overextending herself. She has realized that love given without discernment drains, not heals. She now chooses depth over drama, connection over chaos, alignment over attention. The energy she once used to chase approval, she now uses to cultivate purpose. And through that shift, something extraordinary happens. She becomes magnetic, yet untouchable, grounded, yet fluid, present, yet free. From discernment, she moves naturally into another sacred wisdom, the courage to walk alone. The intelligent woman does not fear solitude, because she has discovered that solitude is not loneliness, it is space. Space to breathe, to heal, to return to herself. While the world rushes to fill the silence, she has learned to sit in it. She listens to her own thoughts without running from them. She allows her emotions to surface without drowning in them. There is a certain kind of woman who finds herself most alive in the quiet moments. When the noise fades and the mask falls, it is in solitude that she meets the parts of herself she used to hide, the unhealed, the uncertain, the undone. She no longer scolds these parts into silence. She listens to them with compassion. For she understands that growth does not happen when life is loud, but when life is still enough for her to hear the whisper of truth beneath the surface of her own mind. To walk alone is to walk in trust. Trust that what is meant for her will not pass by simply because she paused to heal. Trust that being unseen does not mean being unworthy. Trust that the seasons of solitude are not punishments but preparations. In these seasons, she stops chasing love that costs her peace. She stops seeking validation that demands her to shrink. She stops clinging to people who only show up for her light but disappear when she's in her shadow. Instead, she builds a sanctuary within herself. A place that no betrayal can touch, no rejection can shake. A place where her own presence becomes enough. When she reaches that place, solitude transforms into power. She is no longer afraid of being alone because she has realized she is never truly alone. The entire universe seems to move in rhythm with her heartbeat. The wind becomes her conversation. The silence becomes her prayer. And her breath becomes her reminder that life itself is within her, not outside of her. And it is from that sacred solitude that her creativity begins to awaken again. Her mind, once cluttered by the noise of others, becomes clear. Her spirit, once exhausted by giving too much, begins to dance again. She realizes that solitude is not the absence of love. It is the birthplace of it, the kind of love that does not depend on anyone's presence, but on her own awareness of divine connection. From discernment to solitude, she arrives at the next truth, the power of softness. The intelligent woman, contrary to what the world teaches, does not need to harden to survive. She learns that true strength is not about being unbreakable. It's about being unafraid to bend without losing your roots. Her softness is not weakness, it is wisdom. The wisdom to stay open in a world that often rewards indifference. There is great power in the woman who can cry and still rise, who can forgive and still protect herself, who can love deeply and still let go when it's time. Her softness does not make her fragile, it makes her whole, because to remain soft after being hurt, to remain kind after being betrayed, to remain open after being misunderstood, that is the ultimate act of power. Softness is her rebellion. It's her way of saying, I refuse to become what hurt me. While the world pushes her to be sharp, she chooses to be fluid. While others build walls, she plants gardens. And while many chase dominance, she cultivates grace. Her softness allows her to see beyond people's defenses and touch the soul beneath their pain. She doesn't fight to be understood anymore. She simply lives in truth, knowing that understanding will find her when hearts are ready. Her awareness, sharp, yet kind. She can look at a person and see through their performance, not with suspicion, but with clarity. Because she knows that people often wear masks, not out of deception, but out of fear. And so she listens not only to the words they speak, but to the energy behind them. There's something almost sacred about her silence. It's not the silence of withdrawal, but of wisdom. It's the silence that says, I'm not here to fight the noise, I'm here to understand it. When and in that stillness, she gathers truth like light collects in water. She doesn't speak until her words are ready, and when she does, they carry weight, not because they are loud, but because they are rooted. Her calm presence unsettles those who equate stillness with weakness. They do not understand that it takes far more strength to hold your peace than to lose it. She's learned that silence can be a mirror, reflecting the chaos around her without becoming part of it. And through this mirror, she sees herself more clearly. She no longer feels the need to justify what she knows intuitively, because wisdom is not a performance. They arrive to inform her, not control her. And so she listens, learns, and lets them go. She understands that to feel deeply is a gift, but to express that depth with grace is art. When someone hurts her, she no longer responds with equal pain. She no longer allows others to dictate the rhythm of her spirit. She breathes through her emotions now, letting them rise, letting them fall until they dissolve into understanding. In her world, peace is not found in avoiding emotion, but in guiding it wisely. You might think this makes her detached, but it doesn't. It makes her deeply alive. Because when you no longer fear the storm inside, you begin to dance in the rain. That's the kind of woman she has become. A woman who has turned her emotional chaos into clarity. She is not unfeeling, she is centered. Her heart, once reactive, has become responsive. Her strength is soft, her power subtle. There's a quiet revolution that happens when a woman learns this kind of emotional discipline. She stops depending on others to make her feel stable. She no longer seeks external validation to know she's enough. Instead, she becomes the source of her own peace. She wakes each morning not asking the world to be kind, but reminding herself to stay kind within it. She knows that true power doesn't lie in controlling others. It lies in mastering oneself. And so, she nurtures this inner balance, tending to it like a garden. Every morning, she waters her patience. Every evening, she prunes her fears. There's no rush to bloom. She knows that growth happens quietly beneath the soil. Emotional mastery has taught her that what looks still on the surface is often transforming underneath. But this level of self-awareness requires something rare, solitude. And solitude to her is not loneliness, it is sanctuary. In her solitude, she returns home to herself, away from the noise of expectations. Away from the comparisons that poison clarity, she rediscovers her essence. There, in that sacred space, she doesn't have to perform, she doesn't have to impress. She can simply be me. There was a time when solitude frightened her. She learns, finally, that discernment is not cruelty, it's wisdom. There is a deep intelligence in knowing where your energy flows and, more importantly, where it leaks. The intelligent woman begins to sense this subtly. She can walk into a room and feel whether her soul expands or contracts. She pays attention to that sensation. for it never lies. She begins to see that not everyone's presence is nourishment, some are lessons, and so she stops chasing connection and begins cultivating alignment. This awareness doesn't come from pride, but from peace. She is no longer interested in proving her worth to anyone, because she has already seen what it costs to pour endlessly into people who only take. Now, she moves like water, flowing where she's welcomed, retreating where she's not. There's a tenderness to it, a kind of loving detachment that only maturity brings. She gives deeply, but wisely. She shares her light, but not at the expense of her flame. When she says no now, it's not rejection, it's preservation. When she walks away, it's not bitterness, it's clarity. Her energy has become a sacred ecosystem, and she guards it like something holy, because she has learned that peace is not something you stumble upon. It's something you protect. It's something you choose again and again, especially when the world invites you to abandon it. She begins to view her boundaries not as walls, but as gates, open to those who come with good intentions, closed to what disturbs her harmony. She understands that she is not required to entertain what exhausts her, nor to explain the value of her peace. When you reach this level of awareness, you stop apologizing for the way you protect your soul. You start to understand that saying yes to everything was never kindness. It was self-abandonment in disguise. And in this sacred restraint, something beautiful begins to happen. The more she preserves her energy, the more powerful it becomes. Her mind grows sharper, her intuition clearer, her heart more open. Because now, instead of being drained by noise, she is fueled by purpose. Instead of scattering her strength in every direction, she channels it inward into her growth, her passions, her dreams. This is how she begins to evolve, from a woman who reacts to everything into a woman who responds to what matters. She no longer moves out of desperation, but intention. No longer from fear, but from wisdom. There's a shift, a calm, quiet transformation that only those walking a similar path can recognize. And with that shift comes another truth. The understanding that intelligence is not only emotional or spiritual, it is also continual. The intelligent woman is forever learning. She is not afraid to be a beginner, because she knows that every great thing begins in humility. Her curiosity becomes her compass, guiding her toward expansion rather than stagnation. She learns from books, from art, from nature, but mostly from life. Every experience becomes a teacher, every mistake a lesson. She no longer hides from her failures, for she understands that wisdom is often born from them. Each scar is a mark of her evolution, not her weakness. Her learning is not confined to intellect. It's an unfolding of consciousness. She asks questions not to argue, but to understand. She seeks knowledge not to impress, but to illuminate. She understands that growth is not linear. It spirals, it circles back, it deepens. There are days when she feels enlightened and days when she feels lost. But even in confusion, she remains open, because she knows that confusion is simply the mind stretching to contain a greater truth. The intelligent woman knows that learning never ends. She embraces curiosity the way others embrace comfort. Every encounter becomes an opportunity to expand her perspective. When she listens to others, she doesn't wait to reply. She listens to receive. Even those she disagrees with, she learns from. Because she has discovered that wisdom often hides in unexpected voices, her humility protects her from arrogance. She never believes she has arrived, because true intelligence is fluid. It evolves as you do. Every time she learns something new, she realizes how much more there is to know, and instead of feeling small, she feels liberated. Because the infinite nature of learning means she will never stop becoming. But she has also learned that knowledge without peace can become noise. So she balances her curiosity with stillness. She doesn't chase information endlessly, she integrates it. She reflects, she applies, she allows wisdom to take root before she seeks more. Her learning is embodied. It lives through her choices, her behavior, her energy, and through this constant expansion, she comes to a profound realization that life itself is her greatest teacher. Every joy, every heartbreak, every silence has been preparing her for deeper understanding. She begins to see patterns where she once saw problems, meaning where she once saw mess. And through that perspective she grows, not harder, but wiser. Yet, with all this wisdom, all this discernment, she discovers another dimension of intelligence, one that doesn't rely on what she knows, but on what she doesn't need to prove. She learns the strength of non-reaction. There is immense power in stillness, in choosing not to engage every battle that comes her way. At first, she misunderstood this, thinking silence meant surrender. But in time, she realized it's quite the opposite. Silence, when rooted in awareness, is not submission, it's sovereignty. She has nothing to prove anymore. Not every accusation deserves an answer. Not every provocation requires response. When someone seeks to pull her into chaos, she doesn't descend, she observes. Her peace has become her boundary, her stillness, her strength. The more she grows, the less she reacts. Because reaction comes from ego, but response comes from wisdom. She has learned that reacting to everything gives her power away. It allows others to set her emotional rhythm. But when she pauses, when she breathes before she speaks, she reclaims her control. Non-reaction is not indifference, it's maturity. It means she sees clearly but chooses peace anyway. She understands that not every misunderstanding needs clarification. Not every insult needs defense. Because often, silence says more than words ever could. There's a quiet dignity in this kind of restraint. It's the confidence of someone who knows that their worth isn't determined by noise. She no longer chases validation, she embodies value. Her energy no longer flares in every direction. It moves with purpose. And the beauty of this shift is that it frees her. She is no longer tethered to the approval of others. She no longer needs to be understood by everyone, because she finally understands herself. That understanding is enough. It anchors her in a world that thrives on reaction. This is the paradox of wisdom. The more aware you become, the less you need to prove. The more peaceful you grow, the less you need to defend. And so she walks through life unbothered, not because she doesn't care, but because she cares deeply, just not about everything. There's a calm fire within her now, a confidence that doesn't shout but radiates. She carries herself like someone who knows that her energy is precious, her time valuable, her peace non-negotiable. And this quiet self-possession is what sets her apart. It's not that life no longer challenges her, it's that she no longer allows challenges to shake her core. When people misunderstand her silence, she lets them. When others misread her stillness, she smiles. Because she knows that peace misunderstood is still peace kept. Her journey has taught her that the highest form of intelligence is inner harmony, to move through the world with awareness, restraint and grace, to protect your energy, to keep learning, and to stay still when the world tries to pull you into its storm. That is power. And so she lives each day like a quiet prayer, mindful of where her energy flows, grateful for what she learns, and peaceful in what she chooses to release. She is not just surviving anymore, she is mastering the art of being. Because intelligence, she has come to realize, is not found in thinking more. It's found in being more aware. It's the ability to know when to walk away, when to stay, when to speak, and when silence itself becomes the most profound response. She has turned her life into a meditation. Each decision a reflection of her values, each pause a declaration of her power. She no longer strives to be seen. She is content to be. And in that quiet, the world bends toward her. Not out of fear, but out of reverence for the rare, steady light of a woman who has mastered herself. There is a moment in a woman's evolution when she realizes that peace is not something she must search for outside herself. It's something she must return to within. That moment, though subtle, transforms everything, because suddenly she sees how much of her life has been spent reacting to what didn't deserve her energy. How much of her inner power was poured into defending herself instead of understanding herself. And so, she begins to practice something rare in a world addicted to noise, the art of non-reaction. It's not that she doesn't feel deeply anymore. She feels more than ever. But she no longer allows her emotions to drag her through every storm that passes. She watches them instead like waves, rising, cresting, falling, and realizes that she is the ocean beneath them, not the storm itself. She used to think strength was about standing her ground in every argument, explaining herself endlessly, trying to prove her worth to those who couldn't see it. But now, she understands that silence can be far louder than defense. That peace doesn't need an announcement. It speaks through stillness. There's a quiet kind of power that comes with being unbothered, not indifferent, not cold, but centered. And she has learned that not every opinion requires her engagement, not every accusation deserves her correction. The world will always project its noise, but she has learned to become the calm observer of that noise, to choose, moment by moment, what deserves her response and what simply dissolves in the stillness of her awareness. She no longer seeks to control how others perceive her, for she knows now that perception says more about the observer than the observed. She no longer needs to win every battle. She has chosen peace over victory, because peace, unlike validation, lasts. It expands. It creates space inside her chest where freedom can breathe. This mastery of non-reaction is not born overnight. It's carved slowly through pain, patience, and awakening. It's shaped through all the times she lost her peace, trying to make others understand her. Through every moment she gave her calm away too cheaply. But one day, she woke up and realized she was done giving her serenity to chaos. She understood that the world does not need to quiet down for her to be at peace. She just needs to stop dancing to its noise. And once she begins to live from that still place, something even deeper unfolds. She discovers the beauty of presence. Not the kind of presence that demands to be noticed, but the kind that simply is. Where she begins to see that life has always been happening here, in this moment, not in the past she keeps revisiting, nor in the future she keeps chasing. Presence becomes her new language. She drinks her morning tea with awareness. She listens without rushing to respond. She looks at the sky longer than before. She notices how light falls on the walls, how her breath expands in her chest, how silence feels alive when she stops fearing it. This way of living slows her down, not in motion, but in perception. Because now, she's not rushing to get somewhere else. She's here, fully. Every sound, every emotion, every heartbeat becomes sacred. Even the smallest acts, folding laundry, washing dishes, walking in the evening air, become rituals of mindfulness. The world doesn't need to change for her to feel alive. She simply needs to be present enough to see it. She used to live in fragments. Pieces of memory, fragments of worry, echoes of what if. But presence stitches her back together. It calls her home. It reminds her that there is only ever this breath, this heartbeat, this awareness. And in that simplicity, she finds everything she was searching for. When she's present, she stops trying to control the narrative. She stops trying to rush her healing, force her future, or rewrite her past. She learns to trust the flow of life, not as an abstract idea, but as a daily practice. When sadness comes, she feels it fully, without resistance. When joy visits, she welcomes it without clinging. She has finally learned to let life move through her, instead of trying to manage every current. And that, perhaps, is one of the greatest forms of intelligence. To live without needing constant control, to be aware enough to participate, but free enough to release. Presence teaches her that happiness is not a destination. It's the byproduct of attention. And peace is not a gift life gives you. It's the result of your willingness to be where you are, fully awake. But presence, like any sacred state, requires honesty. Because the closer you come to yourself, the less you can pretend. And so the next stage of her growth begins, not in silence, but in truth. She starts confronting the masks she's worn for so long. The polite smiles, the careful words, the quiet tolerance of what hurt her. For years, she believed that being agreeable kept the peace, but now she realizes it only delayed her truth. She sees that self-honesty is the purest form of love one can give themselves. And though it stings at first, it is the kind of sting that cleanses. She sits with her reflections and asks, what am I really feeling? What have I been pretending not to know? The answers don't always come easily. Sometimes they shake her, sometimes they liberate her, but she welcomes them all, because she knows that healing cannot exist where denial lives. Self-honesty is not comfortable. It's sacred. It requires her to meet the parts of herself she used to avoid. The jealousy, the insecurity, the fear, the resentment. But instead of judging them, she listens. She asks what they are trying to tell her. And in doing so, she transforms shame into understanding. The shadows she once hid from become teachers, not enemies. It's a strange paradox. How the more honest she becomes with herself, the freer she feels, because honesty dismantles illusions. It breaks the walls she built to appear strong. It dismantles the stories she used to tell herself to make sense of pain. And once those walls fall, she stands in her own truth, raw, unfiltered, and real. She begins to live differently now. She no longer agrees when her soul says no. She no longer shrinks to make others comfortable. She no longer accepts love that requires her to lie about who she is. There's a quiet rebellion in her honesty. A revolution that doesn't shout, but glows. Because now, her life aligns with her truth. And that alignment gives her peace deeper than any approval ever could. She's no longer afraid to say, this is not for me, or I'm not okay right now, or I need space. She has stopped confusing emotional honesty with weakness. To her, vulnerability has become strength, because it takes courage to be seen as you are in a world that constantly rewards pretending. The more honest she becomes, the lighter she feels. She sheds old roles, old expectations, old versions of herself that were built from survival rather than truth. She realizes that authenticity isn't about being perfect. It's about being whole. One is the willingness to meet yourself exactly where you are, even when it's messy, even when it's uncertain. Through her non-reaction, she found peace. Through her presence, she found awareness. Through her honesty, she found freedom. And together, these qualities wove a new kind of intelligence within her. One that cannot be measured by words or logic, but only by the serenity in her eyes and the calm in her spirit. Now she walks differently. There's something unshakable about her. Something soft yet strong, grounded yet free. She doesn't rush to explain herself. She doesn't chase what leaves or beg what stays. That's when her power transforms from the energy of force into the grace of alignment. And in that gentle surrender, she learns something extraordinary. That peace does not come from fixing the world around her, but from tending to the world within. She stops seeking validation from the outside, for she's found a sacred center inside, that inner sanctuary where her voice is no longer an echo of others' expectations, but a song of truth. There she sits, calm, unhurried, and utterly at home within her own soul. But this kind of peace does not arrive overnight. It comes after storms, after moments when everything she thought she was sure of dissolves into uncertainty, after she's wrestled with her own reflection and asked the difficult questions. Who am I when I'm not being strong for everyone else? Who am I when the world stops applauding my strength and asks me to simply be still? These are the sacred questions that break her open and reveal the depth of her intelligence, not the kind measured by logic, but the kind felt through wisdom. In this kind of softness, there is discernment. She knows where to pour her compassion and where to reserve it. Her heart is open, but her gates are guarded. Her empathy is deep, but it is not blind. She loves, not to be loved back, but because love is her natural state. The world cannot take that away anymore. This is where her power matures. She becomes the embodiment of balance, strong yet tender, calm yet fierce. grounded yet ethereal. People are drawn to her not because she shouts, but because she radiates. Her energy speaks before her words do. It says, "And I have walked through fire and learned to glow, not burn." And so discernment keeps her wise, solitude keeps her centered, softness keeps her human. These are not separate lessons, but one continuous melody. The symphony of an awakened woman who knows herself. She no longer strives to be everything to everyone. She no longer seeks to please the crowd or prove her worth through endless doing. She lives intentionally, breathes deeply, and moves with purpose. Her intelligence is not in her achievements alone, but in the way she treats life itself, with reverence, patience, and understanding. For in the end, what makes her truly powerful is not what she has conquered, but what she has mastered within, the ability to discern what is hers and what is not, the courage to walk alone without fear, the softness to stay open even after breaking. This is the quiet revolution of the highly intelligent woman. She rises, not by fighting for her place in the world, but by remembering that her place was never lost to begin with. She does not chase peace anymore, because she has become it. She does not search for love anymore, because she embodies it, and she no longer strives to be understood. She simply exists, deeply, gracefully, and unshakably herself. There is a sacred calm that begins to unfold in a woman's life when she learns the art of presence, when she no longer chases moments, but allows moments to find her. She begins to understand that rushing through life is not the same as living it, that the constant striving, the endless doing, the obsession with becoming often keeps her from noticing the quiet beauty of simply being. Presence becomes her new power, not a performance but a deep awareness. She starts to live as though every breath carries its own lesson, every silence its own wisdom. There was a time when she measured her worth through movement, how much she accomplished, how much she gave, how much she held together. But now she begins to see that sometimes the most intelligent thing she can do is pause. In that pause, she meets herself again. She listens to the quiet hum beneath her thoughts, the pulse that connects her to everything. Presence doesn't mean standing still, it means being awake to the stillness that's already within, even as life moves around her. The woman who lives with presence no longer reacts to life. She responds to it. She no longer fears uncertainty. She flows with it. She realizes that presence is not about controlling outcomes, but trusting the process. In each conversation, she listens not just to words, but to energy. In each experience, she tastes the texture of it, feels the heartbeat of it. The world slows down for her because she has slowed down within. She no longer lives waiting for the next. She lives inside the now. Presence transforms her relationships too. She no longer gives half of her heart while thinking about tomorrow. When she loves, she's fully there, eyes open, soul attentive. When she listens, it's not to reply but to understand. People can feel it, that grounded awareness, that calm attention that makes them feel seen. And when she walks away, she leaves behind not noise, but resonance. But presence isn't easy in a world that glorifies distraction. It takes discipline to be here, to not run from discomfort, to not numb the ache with busyness or noise, to sit in the tender in-between of becoming. Yet she has learned that is where transformation truly happens, in that sacred pause between letting go and arriving, between endings and beginnings. The woman who has learned to dwell there no longer fears change, for she knows change is the only way life teaches growth. And from presence, she begins to understand another profound truth, that every season of her life serves a purpose. The intelligent woman does not rush the winter, for she knows it prepares the soil for spring. She no longer resents her seasons of solitude, for she recognizes them as sacred appointments for renewal. She honors the rhythm of her own becoming. There was a time she compared her journey to others, wondering why her path seemed slower, quieter, less celebrated. But now she sees that her path was not meant to be loud. Some growth happens in the dark, in silence, far from applause. She realizes that the tree does not envy the river, nor does the moon compete with the sun. Each moves in its own timing. Each fulfills its own purpose. So she begins to trust her timing, to stop grasping at what's not ready, to stop forcing open doors that are not meant for her. The intelligent woman knows what is truly hers will never need to be chased. It will align effortlessly when she's prepared to receive it. Until then, she waters her soul, tends to her peace, and grows quietly. Patience becomes her companion, not passive but powerful. She learns that waiting isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the recognition that life unfolds in seasons, and rushing it would only rob her of the beauty of divine order. She looks back on moments she once thought were delays, and sees now that they were protections. The things that didn't work out weren't punishments. They were reroutings toward what was truly aligned. In this acceptance of timing, she finds freedom. No longer a prisoner to the clock or the calendar. She walks with grace in her own rhythm. She stops asking, "And when will it happen?" and starts asking, "And who am I becoming in the waiting?" That shift changes everything. She learns that the waiting itself is not empty. It's the womb of transformation. The woman who embraces her seasons no longer lives in resistance. She lives in reverence. And as she becomes more present, more attuned to her own rhythm, she begins to radiate something the world deeply needs: compassion. But not the soft, self-sacrificing kind that drains her spirit. This compassion is mature. It's intelligent. It's rooted in understanding, not in rescuing. She has learned to see pain, both her own and others, not as something to fix, but as something to hold with tenderness. Compassion for her is not about absorbing others' suffering. It's about creating space where healing can happen. She listens to others not to carry their burdens, but to remind them they have the strength to stand. Her empathy is no longer heavy, it's light. Because she has learned that love does not always mean saving. Sometimes it simply means witnessing without judgment. This kind of compassion begins within. Before she can truly understand others, she must first extend gentleness to herself. She looks back on all the versions of who she's been, the naive, the afraid, the uncertain, and instead of criticizing them, she thanks them. Each one helped her arrive here. Each mistake, each heartbreak, each failure was not a detour, but a direction. She no longer apologizes for her growth, she honors it. And in that self-compassion, something beautiful happens. She stops trying to earn love. She stops performing for acceptance. She begins to give from a full cup, not an empty one. She realizes that compassion without boundaries is self-destruction. So she learns to say, I love you, but I cannot save you." And that is not cruelty, it is clarity. Through this balance, her love becomes pure, her energy becomes precise. People feel peace in her presence, not because she carries their pain, but because she reminds them of their own strength. That is the compassion of the awakened woman, one that heals not by fixing, but by illuminating. Presence, patience, compassion, 3 petals of the same flower, blooming from the same soil of awareness. Together, they become her foundation, her quiet revolution. She doesn't shout her wisdom, she embodies it. Her life becomes her message. In her presence, people remember to breathe. Through her patience, they learn to trust their journey. Through her compassion, they find the courage to forgive themselves. She doesn't just inspire, she awakens. And perhaps that is the mark of true intelligence. Not the brilliance that dazzles, but the wisdom that softens. The woman who has learned these truths no longer seeks to conquer life, she communes with it. She walks not ahead of time nor behind it, but with it. She doesn't chase purpose anymore, she becomes purpose itself. So she continues, gently, faithfully, breathing in rhythm with the world, awake, aware, at peace, because she has come to understand that the deepest form of intelligence is love. Love that sees, that accepts, that endures. Love that begins within and flows outward, quietly transforming everything it touches. And in that still, sacred awareness, she finally understands. Life was never asking her to be perfect. It was only ever asking her to be present. And so, in the quiet unfolding of her journey, she becomes what she once sought. No longer chasing titles, approval, or belonging, but embodying the fullness of herself. The intelligent woman has come to understand that wisdom is not something she collects from the world. It's what blooms when she returns to her own soul. Her life is now a gentle dance between strength and softness, between clarity and surrender. She no longer fears being misunderstood, for she knows truth does not require explanation. She no longer competes, for she has discovered abundance within her own presence. And she no longer hides behind roles or expectations, for she has learned that the most powerful thing she can ever be is real. She carries herself differently now, not with arrogance, but with quiet assurance. She knows that everything she's walked through, every heartbreak, every delay, every silence, was shaping her into this depth, this peace, this power. She no longer resists the flow of life. She trusts it, for she has seen how every ending carries within it the seed of renewal, how every loss uncovers a deeper truth, how even the stillness is alive with purpose. The woman who once searched outside now walks home within. Her peace is her crown, her authenticity, her armor, her awareness, her light. She doesn't need to prove her intelligence. She embodies it in the way she listens, in the way she forgives, in the way she lets go. The world may still be loud, uncertain, and restless, but she moves through it like water, soft, unshakable, and free. And that is the quiet miracle of her becoming. She has not become someone new. She has simply remembered who she always was.